I'm back for another video, maybe the final video about Goosebumps video games. This is a last minute thing I decided to do, which I've never done before for any other licensed video game series, which is what I cover in my videos. I decided to do a tier ranking list. So, tier maker, I'm using a site called tier maker to do this. And we're just going to go through the 10 video games based on Goosebumps so that there are other interactive things that are excluded because they're not a video game, and that's kind of what I'm focused on here. So we're down to like a core list of 10 titles that I've already talked about in a more historical context, and then as well as I've played them all. And this is kind of the capper of the whole series, which is just let's just rank them real quick. Why not? That sounds like a fun thing to do. So we're going to go through all 10. I haven't even really thought about, haven't really planned where these are going to land on this tier table. So we're going to find out as we go. So first we have Escape from Horrorland. That's the game from 1996, developed by DreamWorks Interactive, aka Steven Spielberg's development house. So he and his company got in on that video game action. And that's his first game here, and I need to decide where it's going to go. So Escape from Horrorland, I really like it. It's probably... and it's a first-person point-and-click adventure, which again I've talked about plenty. It is unique in that it is a completely... or not completely, but it is a heavily live-action game. So many of the visuals are live-action, or are actors, kids playing the characters in the game. People in like mummy costumes and Dracula costumes. Jeff Goldblum and Isabella Rossellini are in it as some of the characters. So it has star power thanks to again that Steven Spielberg connection. But yeah, it's an interesting game, and it's so. I really wish we could get like we could get the footage re-rendered at a higher resolution, because I think it would just be an amazing thing to try to archive. It's kind of in the way they've archived like what's that one live action game for Sega CD? I can't remember the title, but anyway, it's been done. Someone goes back, they find the footage, they render that footage at a higher resolution and remake the game, and it looks better. I wish they would do that. But anyway, so I'm going to be bold out of the gate, and I'm going to say that Escape from Horrorland, and this is a relative, I'm grading on a curve, right? These things are graded in relative to each other, not to the wider world of video games, but I'm going to give Escape from Horrorland an A. So we're starting out strong, and I'm going through these in chronological order, in order of release. So there you go. I think they started out really, really strong with Escape from Horrorland, so they deserve that spot. And now we come to Attack of the Mutant. Let's see. That released in 1997. It was developed by. It was published by DreamWorks Interactive. They were still involved, but then it was developed by a different company called Blue Sky Software. So this one got shopped out to a different developer. And for Attack of the Mutant, they basically took the concept of that was in Escape from Horrorland. What if we took because they had a portion of the game that was in a first-person shooter perspective. It was basically Doom. They put Doom into Escape from Horrorland, at least for a little dungeon crawling section. And they decided, like, let's make a whole game based on that. And that's what Attack of the Mutant is. It is a first-person shooter. There's some shooting. / exploration game where you just kind of run around, solve puzzles, and really navigate a maze. So it is very Doom-like in that sense as well, that you're just kind of running around corridors trying to figure out which relatively generic corridor you're supposed to go through. But that's what the game was. In terms of where it lands on my ranking list here, yeah, it's an interesting... I always say interesting for everything when I don't know what else to say about it, but it's not as good as Escape from Horrorland. I don't think it's just in it. Oh, and actually the big thing against that game, it is based on Attack of the Mutant, a book which I do not enjoy. It's about a kid who gets, it turns out his comic book the characters in his favorite comic book are real, and he has to face off against the villain in the comic. But it's just not a good story. I don't think it's scary or compelling as a Goosebumps book. The game's built on that. Gameplay-wise, it's probably more interesting that, what they pull from. But ultimately, I have to give Attack of the Mutant... if we're talking relative, I'd give that a C. So it kind of lands in the middle of Goosebumps games. And there you go. Alright, so the next one is Goosebumps What's Different challenge. This was a weird one. So Goosebumps games went away for a while because of lawsuits between R.L. Stine, the author, and Scholastic, the publisher. And for a while, there was just nothing new for Goosebumps. But then around 2003, they settled the lawsuits. And by 2006, Scholastic decided the first new game we're going to make based on Goosebumps, it is a DVD distributed as a kids meal by Wendy's fast food restaurants. Here in the States, we have a burger chain called Wendy's, and they decided, hey, we're going to do DVDs because video games was just something fast food chains were into at the time. Burger King famously released a bunch of XBLA games, or Xbox 360 games as well. So yeah, Wendy's got in on that action with some DVD games. This one, the Goosebumps What's Different challenge, is basically you have to spot a difference in an image. So you have the original image, which is one of the Goosebumps book covers on the left, and then an altered image on the right, and you have to spot the differences. Very simple game. Again, it's a DVD, so it runs on any DVD player. I guess that's what's nice about it, right? DVDs were a big thing in the early aughts, so everyone was getting on the DVD action, and they decided that they would do it too. But in terms of where it ranks, as a compelling Goosebumps game, I have to give this one a D. So not quite at the bottom. Yeah, not quite like that awful. Not an F, not a failure, but it's at the bottom. It's not as cool as some of the others. All right, next one we have Enter Horrorland. In 2008, Scholastic, I guess after negotiating and working it out with Stein, they decided to bring back Goosebumps as a new book series called the Goosebumps Horrorland series. And that was the triumphant return, I guess, of Goosebumps in 2008. And to accompany that, they had merchandise and marketing and all sorts of new stuff, and a website as well. They called enterhorrorland.com. This was basically a Flash-based mini-game collection. So it was just every time a new book dropped, like every once a month maybe, they would update the site with a new section of the Horrorland theme park. And then when you entered that section of the park, there'd be a bunch of new mini games to play, I think themed around the latest book. So it was very much a direct book tie-in, which was, I think, cool to see that they're just kind of still going based off the books. But yeah, the Enter Horrorland website is not playable anymore. I only know about this from watching footage, so I guess there you go. Take my ranking here for that, with that asterisk that I have not played it personally. I only have watched footage. But based on the footage, I think there's a pretty good variety of Flash games. They are very much Flash games. They are of the time and of the seemingly low budget that they had for this project. So it's not the coolest game either. It's definitely not at the top, but it's better than the DVD. So I'm gonna say this is also a C. I feel like there's enough content there and enough variety of stuff that it was probably a cool thing to have, if you're a kid who's into Goosebumps or anybody who's into Goosebumps in 2008. It was just a nice little diversion to hop into. So it's right in the middle. All right, but then that leads us into the main event of 2008 in Goosebumps video games, which is Goosebumps Horrorland. Full stop. That was just the title. Actually, maybe Goosebumps Horrorland, the video game or something. But yeah, they took, again, this Horrorland concept, which we've already seen with the first game. So this is just, they can't let go of Horrorland. They really Horrorland does lend itself to it is a theme park. So themed lands, aka levels, which are very easy to kind of section off and build stuff into. So yeah, this Goosebumps Horrorland video game was released in 2008. I already said that. But it was developed by Gusto Games and published by Elastic Media, aka Scholastic's video game division, which I think they dropped right after this. So Scholastic thought they might get into video games and didn't work out, so they right away got out of it. But for that window of time, Elastic Media was their video game publishing arm. But yeah, so this game, actually it's much like Enter Horrorland, it is a mini-game collection. The Horrorland is just the frame. And there's a story too, that you're making your way through the theme park, trying to escape, or rescue a kid? No, you're trying to escape. So in the original Escape from Horrorland, the kids knew what is really going on. In this new game, or in this latest game, Goosebumps Horrorland from 2008, the kids in the game, like your character, the playable character, don't know what's going on. So they go through the theme park, going through all the dangerous attractions, which are just mini games of various types, and then you kind of make your way through like 4 different lands, basically, with different levels or mini games within them. But yeah, in terms of where it ranks, I think, oh man, relative to the other games, where would I put this? You know, it could have. It's just, yeah, unfortunately, because the mini games are just sometimes not that interesting. I think maybe the game drags out a bit too much because they're trying to pad out the gameplay. I'm gonna put it in the C tier because yeah, it doesn't quite hit the spot for a B tier for me. So yeah, we're gonna put it right in the middle as a C. All right, well after that that was it for a while. So the books continued. The books have never stopped, but the games stopped for a while. I guess Scholastic just looked maybe at the numbers and sales and decided, okay, we don't have to do this again. So they kind of dropped any games connected to the books. But then in 2015, we got Goosebumps, the movie, the first big movie starring Jack Black. A pretty good movie. I think of the 2 movies, it's probably my preferred one if you're going to watch a Goosebumps book. But it's also like, it's also the, how would you say, the MCU-ification of Goosebumps. The idea like of, oh, we have a lot of characters and stories. Let's just, as opposed to making one movie based on like one of the books, let's just jam it all together because that's what the audience wants. They want to see crossovers, universes collide, that sort of thing. So Goosebumps the movie was that. It was just take all the Goosebumps characters, or as many as they could fit into a 2-hour movie, and just, yeah, jam them in there. But the movie was pretty good. But then it got a game. Goosebumps, the game, released in 2015 as well. It was published by Game Mill Entertainment, developed by Way Forward. And yeah, this was... Oh man, this one competes for Escape from Horrorland as one of my favorites. Like, I was really surprised with Goosebumps, the game, and what Way Forward did with it. It's a visual novel. It is aka a point-and-click adventure where it's from a first-person perspective. You have a mouse cursor on the screen, and you're clicking on stuff. You're, grabbing items from your inventory, combining things, and solving adventure game puzzles as you make your way through this game that is narrated to you. Not unlike a text adventure or a visual novel where the text is describing what's happening to you. That is how you experience interacting with the game. In addition to characters who are talking to you and you're clicking on stuff. But yeah, it was a really impressive game. I really, when I was playing the game and when I was talking about it more in the longer playthrough, I really was debating like, yeah, where does this, relative to Escape from Horrorland, which I felt like would be my favorite, where does this rank? And you know what? Boom. We're going to give this an A tier. Goosebumps the game, A rank or A tier. I think it's surprisingly good. I guess that's why I feel like it belongs there. It is a game that really, the design is very simplified. I think just for whatever reason, the design is very sort of simple visual novel approach, but I think they really do good work with it. I was really impressed with what they did and how it looks. It reminds me most of Snatcher. I guess that's my point of reference because I haven't played too many visual novels, but also the tone and the music of Goosebumps the game is there. So yeah, A tier. Congratulations, Goosebumps the game. That's where you belong. All right, but that leads us into another 2015 game, Night of Scares, developed by Cosmic Forces and Free Range Games. So this was a mobile game, which was also built to support VR. I feel like VR really was their main hook. Like in 2015, VR was a big thing, right? Everyone's trying to get into that. So they made a mobile game, which you don't need VR to play it. You can play it without, having a VR headset, but VR is an option as well. And it is I guess you'd call it a adventure survival game. It is very much inspired by like the Five Nights at Freddy's explosion of sort of that type of horror game, jump scares, right? You're trying to avoid monsters, not get caught because you instantly get killed or, get game over to whatever. And that's what Night of Scares is. It's a game which just requires you to wander around the house. It's based on the movie as well. So the idea is you have to help R.L. Stine, who's been trapped in the typewriter by Slappy the Dummy, to escape. So you're finding pages from the books, which is very much pulled from the movie in terms of like to trap the monsters. You have to use these books to kind of like get them out of the real world and back into the books where they belong. But yeah, in terms of where it ranks, Night of Scares, it's an interesting. Oh man, I gotta stop saying interesting. It feels like a budget mobile game, I guess is what I'll say. I think the jump scare stuff might appeal to a certain audience who likes Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff. It's not as interesting to me, and honestly, because they do this again, but better later. So because of that fact that there's a better version of this game, Night of Scares also ranks as a C. So it's in the middle. It's fine. But there's going to be a better version of this we'll talk about in a moment. All right, so after this, in 2017, we have another mobile game called Goosebumps Horror Town, developed and published by a company called Pixel. So this game, Goosebumps Horror Town, is a city builder, the type of which we've seen many times over, especially with licenses. Like The Simpsons tapped out, I think is maybe the biggest example, maybe the most successful too in terms of how much money and how popular it was. But yeah, it's a game where you have a locked angle of a landscape, and your goal is to build out a town. So in Goosebumps Horror Town, the idea is you are building out this Goosebumps-centric, spooky town. And as you do that, you're meeting characters from the books and situations from the books as well, like different monsters, different kids from the books. Anyone who's a fan of the books would recognize these people in these situations, right? You'd say, "Oh, that's Lucy Dark from one of the books." I forget the title of them. I'm already forgetting the titles of these books. Jeez, I read them all. But yeah, like who else? Mr. Mortman actually is from the same book. So different, and he's different characters, different scenarios. It is a free game that is designed, like many freemium games, to be very slow. So slow that you're like, I can't stand this. I'm going to spend real dollars to speed things up. So that's kind of their business model, right? Is things are so slow that you just want to eventually just you want to buy currency to speed things up by spending real money. So that's that kind of game it is. I talked about it more in that other video I recorded, the longer to chat about it, but I don't like this kind of games. I think they're pretty exploitative, and obviously we're all adults, right? We're all choosing what we want to, how we spend our time, and if people want to play this game, I think it's cool that it is available, because that's where that kind of game, Horror Town, that genre of game really does lend itself to just having a ton of content. So it's not based on the movie too. I think that was brave to not just directly base it on the movie. Instead, they just pull it from the books and kind of jam it all in there. So for folks who like that kind of game, I think it was pretty well made. And even though I personally didn't like it, I'd say that's a B. Wow, that's our first B. I didn't plan ahead. I'm as surprised as you are that this game that I didn't really like as much personally, I still think it's more compelling than some of these other C tiers things. Like, is it more compelling than Attack of the Mutant? Yes, because again, I think it really just it pulls a lot from the books, and I think it was really well made. So we'll leave it there. So Horror Town gets a B. All right, now we come to the weirdest thing. So, what do we call this? We're calling this the Goosebumps / Crikey AR app. So there's an app, social media app called Crikey, which uses alternate reality AR games, which is like Pokemon Go, where you're through your phone, you're looking at the real world, and there's a virtual or digital character there. And you interact with that character and sort of with the character in that way. And that's what this was. This app called Crikey teamed up with Scholastic just to get the license for Goosebumps, and they made a bunch of mini games featuring Slappy, the dummy, as like a character who will like mess with you as you're trying to play the games, I guess. Like if you're playing a game of Jenga, Slappy will like walk up and knock it over or pull out a brick or something. So the problem is these games are no longer available. When did they release? They released in 2018. They were called the Trap Slappy Challenge, Slappy's Haunted Christmas, and Escape the Cage. But they're not there anymore. I downloaded what is now called the Crikey India app, I think they pivoted to the India market, and they're just not playable. But there were some trailers, so I was able to watch footage. Based on what I saw, again, if I was to rank these, that relative to the rest of these things, it's an F. Like I was that unimpressed. I felt like it was that. It just wasn't like the DVD challenge game. I think is better than what I was seeing in those mini games because they're so generic. Like the Crikey mini games are very generic. They just kind of throw Slappy in there after the fact as like an interactive element. But yeah, I just don't think it's based on what I saw. I just don't think it's even worth playing. So sorry, Crikey, and whoever worked on this game, or these games. But yeah, you're at the bottom of this list. I also wonder if I just feel like I have to hit at least every tier, but that's fine. I'm sticking with it. But that brings us to the end. So that was 2018 with that Crikey app stuff. And now we're at Dead of Night in 2020, the most recent game. And this is where Cosmic Forces, the developer of Night of Scares, came back to basically remake the same game and expand on it. So they took Night of Scares, the mobile game that doesn't have free movement, right? Because it was supported VR. You move by like moving between different spots or nodes in the world, which is a very awkward navigation system. So Dead of Night is free movement. You basically replay Night of Scares as the first level, where you're stuck inside Arlstein's house. Then there's a really, again, a level that I talked about this in my longer play, but I was very impressed with the second level of this game. I think because it gave me like Bioshock vibes. Like I was just very impressed with the tone and the pacing. It's a level based on Stay Out of the Basement, which is where a evil plant scientist clone is trying to cause mayhem, and that's what it's. So it's based on that, and I was just very impressed with it. Like I'm still thinking about how cool it was, and so that was that, and then and then it has a third level based on the final section of the Goosebumps movie sequel, Goosebumps 2: Haunted Halloween. They took the finale of that movie and made it the finale of this game, Dead of Night. So yeah, it's a game available on like every platform. You can't really see it in this icon, but it's on PC, Switch, PS4, Xbox. So it's on everything. See, I'm considering how impressed I was with the second level, and I'm not impressed enough that it belongs in the A tier. I'm gonna place it in B because it's very short. Again, they're repurposing content, and again, the first level is based on Night of Scares, which I think was successful, obviously successful enough that they were brought back to do a redo. But to me, that first level is just not as interesting. The Five Nights at Freddy's stuff is just not for me. So that doesn't impress me. And the third level also is very generic, mad scientist lab sort of setup. So purely based on the strength of the second level, I'm going to rank Dead of Night as a B. That's where it's going to land for me. And there you go. That's it. That's all of the 10 video games. Again, there are other interactive experiences like Stein Chillers and the VR Adventure trailer. Like, they're not games. They're just no game element. Even if they are digital interactive experiences, they're not really video games. And there's also like LCD handheld games that, again, are not video at all. So I left out certain things that I just don't feel are part of this core group of video games. So that's it. This is the list. So Escape from Horrorland. Yep. That was a certainty. That was like, yes, it was gonna be an A tier the whole time. Goosebumps the game. That one was a surprise to me. But on reflection, yes, that game is that good that I think it is a must play. If you're gonna play Goosebumps games, play Goosebumps the game. I think it's really good. Goosebumps Horror Town down in the B tier. Again, not for me, but I do think that it is really well made. Obviously, they have an appreciation for Goosebumps, the franchise and series and characters. And they've I didn't mention it, but they've continued to update it too. So it's not like it got dropped yet. The developers managed to keep it alive for like 5 years now. So, this kind of game, Yeah, this kind of game just goes away. It's online only. Someday Goosebumps Horror Town will not be playable to anyone, right? Because it'll just go offline. That's it for that. So they've kept it alive for 5 years. So that as well is impressive. So congrats Horror Town for barely making it into B tier. Dead of Night, again, I think it's an interesting game. I think that second level in particular is just cool. It's just fun. I just really liked it. And it's worth playing the whole game just to get through that second level. So Dead of Night, there you go. C tier, yeah. I mean, I guess if we were grading on a curve here, like this is the middle, the hump of the curve. This is right in the middle. Attack of the Mutant. It's just they obfuscate and they really make it so confusing at times to figure out where to go, what to do. That I don't think it's, that bumps it down a bit. The goofy comic book stuff, I'm not into that either. So all of that just bumps it down into a C for me. Enter Horrorland, I couldn't play it, first of all, so maybe if I'd been able to actually play straight through every single minigame, I'd have a higher opinion of it, but from what I saw, it's an entertaining diversion, but just not a must-play. Not something that seems like you gotta check this out. Goosebumps Horrorland, I feel like some people might not appreciate that I ranked it in the middle like this, or C, but having played all of it, all the way through, I just feel like it's just missing something. Like the framing device of just like, Horrorland, that's great. But then it's just designed for you to go play a bunch of minigames. And you have to like play some of them multiple times to actually get a high enough rank to unlock the next levels. That's how they gate you. So yeah, I don't know. It's not a must play. It's not in that upper echelon of like, you got to check this out. It's more like, if you're a fan, it's there for you. It's in the middle. And finally, yeah, Night of Scares in the C tier here. Night of Scares, just, again, there's a better version of it. That's all I got to say. If you're on mobile, check it out. Otherwise, just play Dead of Night. And then we get to D. What's Different Challenge? It's an interesting artifact, but don't play. You don't have to play it. And again, crikey, with these generic AR apps, sorry. You didn't make it. Didn't make the cut. You're down at the bottom. Well, you shouldn't play it, but also you cannot, because again, it's not available anymore. And there you go. That's all 10 Goosebumps video games ranked. And yeah, thanks for watching. And this video, when it releases, will be the final in a very long series of videos. So, but yeah, this is the short version, I guess. As long as it ran, this is the short version of like all those video games I talked about. So that's it for now. See you next time.